No, I don't want people to go to heretical churches. And neither does my nonprofit, Presbyterians for the Kingdom. But people have been farming clips from this discussion out of context to make it seem like I support people going to heretical churches, which I don't. But let me explain, because it can sound really bad out of context to hear a prominent Christian YouTuber say, yeah, it's sometimes okay to go to a church where the pastor is heretical. I've said this before. I have videos about what it was like in high school when my PCUSA church temporarily got a pastor who denied the resurrection of Christ.
So I guess would you say like John MacArthur and William Lane Craig not only are evangelicals, I feel like you'd probably want to label them heretics.
Yes, they are not Protestants, they're heretics. They're not even, like, you don't have to be a heretic to be an evangelical, because John Piper, for example, is an evangelical, but he confesses that Mary is the Theotokos.
Right.
Unlike John MacArthur, who said Mary did not give birth to God, God was never born.
The comparison must be then to an institutional Protestant framework, which might include then confessional Lutherans, Presbyterians, Anglicans, I guess.
Just because the German Catholic bishops are teaching a lot of heterodoxy, it doesn't mean we say they're not Catholic. We say they're Catholics in rebellion against Catholic teaching.
Well, they're not doing same-sex weddings.
That's true, but I would still, there are Arian bishops in the Catholic Church in the 300s, and they're still technically Catholic bishops and stuff. They're just Catholic bishops that are heretical.
You're saying, well, no, we need to follow, it's not just that, we need to have an allegiance to the institutional church that has its roots in the Reformation, even if it's really, really corrupt right now.
Right, well, everyone has to make this decision. Everyone has to choose which church they're going to submit to.
There's the Baptists, they did that whole thing where they were voting on it and they couldn't even agree on that.
The Southern Baptists aren't one of the main lines. They're historic enough to be a main line. They're not in communion with the rest of us. There was a very clear distinction between the Magisterial Reformation, which was institutional, and the Radical Reformation, which was anti-institutional. And the Magisterial Reformers, Luther and Calvin and Zwingli and Knox, they saw themselves as having much more unity with the Catholics than with the Radical Reformation. So if you want to just use the Protestant label because you have some Anabaptist heritage, that's fine, but then you can't claim Luther and Calvin as your boys the way a lot of these guys want to do.
And we'll go so far as to say that if any of the founders from Luther to Knox knew about this, they would be furious, since they dedicated their lives to Christ's work and not letting papism influence the church. And this Reconquista thing is ultimately going to lead to a kind of Protestant papacy disguised as Protestant renewal. No thanks. I'll be celebrating the freedom of the church to make up her own mind what traditions and liturgies she so chooses to practice to celebrate the Lord's presence. Just as I celebrate your Presbyterian church's freedom to celebrate Christ in the way she sees fit. Redeemed Zoomer, be blessed, and have a great weekend.
It's funny you mention a Catholic Reconquista. My mom's Catholic. She's a big fan of your stuff. She actually asked me to start a Catholic Reconquista group. So I actually did that in my Discord, and they changed their name to Photius Christi because they didn't want to use our Reconquista brand. But yeah, I did technically start a small Catholic Reconquista group on Discord.
This introduces a whole brand new dilemma. We have to reevaluate the purpose of your Reconquista.